I am going to have fun telling this story. And I'm apologizing ahead of time. If I cry, I cry. If I don't cry, I don't cry. This is a story about Laura Joe. My parents were out visiting on their 50th anniversary of their wedding, and I took them, when my dad proposed to my mom, he said, will you go with me to Patsabalong? Well, that's a small town in Inner Mongolia. So for their 50th anniversary, they had actually never made it there. The communists had come in before they could get there in the late 40s. So this is mid-late 90s, and I am going to get them to Patsabalong, and we do. We get them to Patsabalong, and we have a great couple days in Patsabalong, and they're just, in ecstasy. This is like the best anniversary gift I could ever give my parents. But then we go to the capital city of the next province over. Lanzhou is the capital city of Gansu province. And we're traveling with a pastor friend of mine, a Chinese pastor. And he said, Finn, can I bring you over to meet a friend of mine? She speaks very good English, and your parents would probably love to meet her. And so we meet this Laura Joe, and she invites us to her church. She's the senior pastor of the main church in Lanzhou province, and she was actually the mentor of the pastor I was traveling with, Pastor Zhang. And so we said, so what is your story? You speak such good English. She said, well, I was an orphan. I was orphaned in Henan province, and my family were Methodist missionaries. And she goes, I grew up in an American family, and I went to Seattle Pacific University, which is a great school. I studied nursing, got my nursing degree. And in the late 30s, the communists were taking over China, so her parents weren't able to consider even going back to China. But she said, I'm Chinese. I could go back to China. And she was able to get back in, but she was such an active Christian and such a leader in her church that when the communists took over, she was put in prison. And she was sent from Henan, where her home was, to Gansu province, the capital city of Lanzhou, and she was put in a commune. And she was made the nurse for the commune, but she was in house arrest. She was never allowed to leave the compound. So she was in that compound for 10, 20 years, until in the late 70s, she was given her freedom. In the late 70s, she moved into Lanzhou. She was already there, and she started teaching English in the local university in Lanzhou, because she had brilliant English. She was a professional nurse, and the Three Self movement was beginning, and they were trying to open up churches. And she had already started a dozen or so house churches on the side. And the Three Self and the patriotic movement, the registered church movement, came to her and said, Laura Joe, you are already a leader of so many churches. Would you lead the registered church? And she said, on the condition that my house churches can stay, I will lead the registered church. So when we got there, she was the leader of the largest church in Lanzhou City. The pastor of that church, with many other pastors working there, she had a great team of people. At that point, in the mid-90s, she had over 100 house churches that she was leading. And we asked her story. So she told us that Seattle Pacific University story, but there was another part. How did she get adopted by this family? The wife of this Methodist missionary family was walking in their village in Henan when she heard some crying coming from a garbage heap. And there on the garbage heap was this baby. And she picked up the baby, and it was Laura Joe. And she went around to the neighbors and said, whose baby is this? Well, someone had just thrown out their baby. But when they see the foreign woman holding this baby, one family said, that's our baby. Do you want it? If you want it, you have to pay for it. So she said the missionary family was willing to pay some to this Chinese family. She was bought, and she was raised as one of the kids in this Methodist missionary family. Now she's in Lanzhou, the senior pastor of this top church in the province and 100 house churches, and she runs clinics all the time. She has vans. She had an organization that had a van. I don't know if it was eye clinics or dental clinics, and they would travel around. But on this trip that we took with my parents, we went through about 8 or 10 cities. My pastor friend introduced us to the pastors in each of those cities. I believe every one of them said, I was mentored and discipled by Laura Jo. She was a teacher. She had a heart. She wasn't afraid of anything. Now, I don't know if she's alive or not. She'll be in her late 90s if she is alive right now. When I get back to China this summer, I'm going to definitely try and find out if she's still alive. But she changed the face of the Chinese church all along the Yellow River, from Gansu to Hebei. Laura Jo. She said, never got married, never had children, but she says, I have hundreds of kids all over the world. Another crazy story. Thank you.